billboards in Houston, and no one had ever done that. We were getting so many inquiries, and they came through the fax. And
Yeah.
everybody remembers a fax. I don't do faxes anymore, but every lead we got came through a fax. And my partners and I were sitting in one big office, 3 desks in one office. And when the fax would start making noise, everyone would yell, "Not it," because we all had a stack of 10 leads we still haven't called back. It was so crazy. We were buying so many houses. We'd buy 100, 125 houses a year at 40, 45, 50 cents on a dollar all day. And now it is a highly competitive landscape in buying and selling houses.
Let's talk about that, the change in the real estate industry about what we do just for a
Hmm.
minute. You started off, you set the stage really well there with faxes, like we did faxes. But now you have people selling across the nation. Like you don't have to be where you are to buy or sell the real estate. What's your thought, your observations on that, and where do you think this is going? I mean, with AI, with a lot of innovations.
It's really interesting, and I'm probably not the expert at any of that. I do know a lot of folks that are very successful at what they would, I guess they call dialing for dollars, where they hire, people call them virtual assistants. I call them remote team members, right? They're part of our team. And we have remote staff as well for certain tasks, but they have them dialing outbound calls to homeowners to try to buy houses, and they've become very successful at it. And the next iteration is a computer calling and pretending to be a person and making those calls at a greatly reduced cost. And the government's going to come down on that. They're not going to like it, but that's innovation. And the whole AI thing is really interesting, and the robotics thing is really interesting. And people are complaining, well, this job will be gone and that job will be gone. Well, I don't feel it's any different than the guy who used to fix wagon wheels is out of a job when the car was invented. The guy who lit the street lamps is out of a business when electricity was invented. It's inevitable. Innovation is coming, and you just have to adapt. And if your job goes away, you do a new job. Hmm.
But I wonder how long until we have robot to go out on by appointment and buy houses. I don't think that can be replaceable, but
There's no connection, right? There's no
yeah,
trust. The notorious Eddie Gann, he'll say belly button to belly button. There's nothing more important than that, right? Where you can convey that you have the competence, you have the ability, and that your business, you're going to follow through with what you say, and no amount of computing power can convey that type of thing to another human being.
I agree. Because, yeah, I mean, I try to talk to ChatGPT. It's funny, we're trying to have conversations, and when you start asking about, what's your opinion on this? And I don't have an opinion.
But you can tell it to have an opinion, right? If you said, "Hey, I'm going to hire you to do this job, and I want you to make these phone calls, and you need to have these 25 opinions," it'll do it. But
Yeah.
it doesn't make it trustworthy as a human. And
Okay. You have multiple businesses.
I do.
What do
So
all of them share?
I think when you're my personality type, so I'm what people would call a serial entrepreneurial. Some people call the entrepreneurial personality type. My brain works different than most people. Yours is like mine. It's very different than a normal. We're about 1% of the population. But when I go to a restaurant or I go to a coffee shop, or if I'm standing in line waiting to get to the counter, I've already rebuilt the process on how they're operating their business to make it better,
Guilty. Yeah.
right? How many people do that? How many, I was in a conference and it's like, okay, how many people have a significant other says, just put your phone down and stop working, right? How many people say, can you just turn it off, right? So we can't turn it off. We can't help ourselves, right? But I think when you're in multiple businesses, you're in the business of business. You're not really in the real estate business and the property management business and the, business coaching business. You're in the business of business. They're all the same. All
Hmm.
businesses work the same. They all have the same 6 key components. And when you get into a business and you have the proper systems, you have the right people in the right seats, you have a vision, you have a long 10-year target, reaching for the same goals, and you teach your staff to do that. It's not different based on the industry. They're all the same.
So, what are the framework of a business? Because, yes, you have your real estate business, your lender business at one point, your rental warehouse business. I'm sure they all share a common framework because as a
Sure
business,
do.
they all share, it's the marketing may be different, the product, the service you provide may be different. You have different customer, but
Hmm.
you have commonality. So can you explain what those framework that all of your businesses share, and what if someone listens to this podcast right now and want to get into, whether it's into a property management business or start flipping houses, or start a lending company, what are the key things that they should?
All right. So I would suggest they read a book called Traction by Gino Wickman, and that's the book that started EOS, which is called the Entrepreneurial Operating System. That's the one I was telling you about earlier that I
I love
have
that book, by the way.
become.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't it great? And that's one I got certified with to implement into small business, and I've implemented it in all of my businesses because it works. But every business has 6 key components. You got a vision. You gotta have vision. Where are you going? How you gonna get there, right? They got a people component. You gotta have the right people in the right seat. You gotta have data. Do you know your data? Do you know your numbers? Are you tracking your numbers? Are you tracking them as often as you should, right? And then everybody has issues. And the problem with issues in businesses, everybody has them, right? There's always going to be a problem. And I read a great book. It was Developing the Leader Within, and he talked about that business is hard. If you're a leader in a business, your entirety of your job is fixing issues. So when you have a day where you say everything went wrong today, that's not really true. The truth is the things that went wrong were the things that you needed to handle because you're the boss. And so you have to get used to handling issues. And one of the things I talk about is, when leadership teams get in a room, they talk an issue to death and they walk out with no solution. So what you have to do is you have to identify what the true root cause of that issue is, discuss it very briefly, and then you solve that issue and somebody takes action to make it go away forever. So that's issues, right? You've got to handle your issues. And then processes. You spoke about that earlier today. You got to have your core processes, the main things, your accounting process, your sales process, all that. You got to have them documented. And you don't want a 500-page manual, right? Because nobody's going to follow it, nobody's going to read it. But you need it at a high level, the major steps, so you can get through those processes, and everybody does things the right and best way every time. That's very important. And then the last one is the name of the book is Traction. If you've got everybody focused on that long-term vision, and you've taught them how to get there, and they're all rowing the boat in the same direction, you'll get a lot more traction in your business, and you'll make a whole lot more money and live a whole lot better life.
I use some concept from the Traction book. The one that stuck with me the most was the analogies of a jar, and you start filling it up with rocks, pebbles, and sand.
Absolutely.
And water.
Yep.
And that concept is more visual to me than anything. Just like if you start
It's a
filling it
great
up with
point.
water, and then your vase is full. You can't fill it up with anything else. So
And you're funny you say that, because every business person gets it. Once you say it, they go, absolutely, but they don't behave that way. It's really a challenge to get people to do important things first, right? What they do is they do the urgent things first, and urgent does not overtake important. That